I think that people might hope for is that there's be a greater sense of social solidarity, that we're all working together in our thinking about cultural change. There are changes that split and divide people, and there are changes that bring people together. External threat certainly falls in the category of events that can bring a society together. So it would be, in principle, possible that coping with this plague, this external threat, would be something that would increase members of a society's sense of fighting something together. I mean, we might fantasize that it even would work at a global level, that we all around the world would realize that as common humanity and with our common vulnerability to illness, we're all coping with the same problem. That's probably a bit much to hope for, but it could certainly work in countries that get through this by cooperating and working together. I think stressing the common humanity uh, would, would help us enjoy this unifying effect. Um, and perhaps then we have to resist the temptation to blame each other or to expect the government to solve it or to look to divisive forces in our society. Clearly, the economic damage is a serious concern, which could compromise our society for a long period of time and potentially stunt the careers and life courses of countless young people who are at critical stages in their careers and in their life development. Another related thing is that lots of politicians look at a crisis as something they can use to advance their own agenda. The phrase, don't let a good crisis go to waste, means, well, there's a problem. Now we have a pandemic and people are getting sick, but this is a chance to advance our other goals that we may have had before the pandemic was even an idea or a concern in anyone's mind, let alone a reality. So what happens in many of these cases will be an expansion of government power, more structures, more bureaucracy, and people, when they are worried, they are more willing to give up some of their freedom to cede to an authority which will take care of them. Now, it's an illusion in this case. It's not clear the government can really take care of us. The pandemic is a disease. But that would be the natural human impulse. One of the big ideas in there is demosclerosis, that as a state goes on decade after decade, that it accumulates a stronger bureaucracy, more getting tied into special interests who use the government for their own benefit, and that prevent the government from doing its job to produce the general welfare. I think one thing that psychological research shows is that the formula for self-destructive behavior is to pursue short-term gain at long-term cost. Now we've got an epidemic, and so people are dying, and it's easy to exaggerate the extent and the degree of threat. And so, oh my God, we need to take all these desperate measures, otherwise people will die. Well, people will die anyway. What's harder to see is the long-term costs to government and other adjustments. So if we create an economic depression that lasts for years, that will cost lives too, and will also do enormous damage to the quantity and quality of life that many people will enjoy. You have to understand that your careers have critical stages. So if you reach the critical stage during an economic downturn or a depression, you don't have the opportunities to move up that you would have if when times were good. Society recovers, and the opportunities open up again at some point, but then they go to the younger people, and so if you were at that critical point at that time, even though the effect of the depression is temporary for society, it's permanent for you. We also have, we have the idea that by staying home we can save people's lives, and well, it does certainly reduce transmission of the pandemic. But it's easy to not notice, well, there are other costs too. If people are not going out for their routine medical care, there'll be less cancer screening, there'll be less all sorts of minor things that can help people live better and longer lives. And so deaths may increase, and I've seen some people estimate that the long-term costs in death from other causes, from things that are neglected during the pandemic, could outweigh the death toll of the pandemic itself, especially if you make adjustment for the people dying from it are mostly people who are old and sick, and so the number of months of lives lost might be smaller for them. Whereas a young person doesn't go and get a routine checkup and misses the first signs of cancer and then dies, that could be a much greater amount of total life lost. So the answer I would say is be aware of the tendency of the mind to focus on short-term problems and neglect long-term future ones, which are vaguer and less palpable, but down the road may end up being more costly. Back in the 90s, when my research was settling into the two major programs that have guided it ever since, I did a little project on the side, a review article called Bad is Stronger Than Good, and I had just noticed this pattern that the mind seems to have that has stronger reactions to negative things than positive things. And it had been spotted in a couple areas, like economists talk about loss aversion, and people with studying first impressions had noticed that you meet somebody, learning something bad makes a stronger impression than learning something good about that person. But when we started looking, it seemed to be true everywhere. I'm convinced this is one of the basic patterns of the human mind, that it focuses more on negative things than on positive things. And so, in terms of understanding the pandemic and the problems we're having with it, yes, it's a real problem. I'm not saying it's not. People are getting sick. Some people are dying. But almost certainly we are overestimating how bad it is. That's just how the mind works. And my fear is when there's a collective thing, it probably escalates even more than when it's a private one-person sort of thing. Because people will see the alarm in each other, and a lot of people who are overreacting will fuel each other's fears and produce a spiral of a greater overreaction. So, again, I'm not trying to say it's not a serious problem. Yes, people are getting sick, and some are dying, but understand that it's a property of the human mind to overestimate the problems and the danger and the downside.